What if you could save the very soul of a nation? Not with an army, not with politics, but with a story. Imagine this. For over 30 years, one man, a poet named Ferdowsi, poured his entire life into one single monumental task. His mission? To find all the scattered myths, all the fading memories of ancient Persia, and forge them into a single epic poem. We're not just talking about a collection of stories here. This is the tale of a quest to make sure an entire civilization would never, ever be forgotten. And it all starts not with a hero's sword, but with a poet's pen.
And right from the jump, you get a sense of the drama. These are the defiant words of our poet, Ferdowsi, and he's aiming them right at the most powerful man he knows, the Sultan, his own patron. You see, this whole story is bookended by an epic conflict. Not just the one on the page with heroes and monsters, but a real-life struggle between a creator and a king. This one moment of pure defiance really sets the stage for everything to come.
And this is the work at the heart of it all. The Shahnameh, the Book of Kings. We're talking 60,000 rhyming couplets. Think about that for a second. 60,000, all telling the story of Persia, from the literal dawn of creation all the way to the Arab conquest in the 7th century. It is, to this day, the absolute cornerstone of the Persian language and its identity. Okay, so to really get this book, we first have to understand the world that made it. Before Ferdowsi ever wrote a single line, the land of ancient Iran was already a place filled with epic stories and some pretty stark realities. Just picture this land for a moment. It's a place of incredible extremes. You've got these beautiful, clear blue skies and then crushing, heavy snows. You've got lush, green valleys teeming with life, right next to deadly deserts with these awful, pestilential winds. This wasn't just about the scenery. This was the daily reality that shaped the entire Persian way of seeing the world. And here's what happens when you live in a world like that, a world of such sharp contrasts, light and dark, life and death, fertile ground and barren wasteland. It's really no surprise that your whole spiritual worldview starts to look the same. This led directly to the core belief of Zoroastrianism, this idea of a constant, cosmic, relentless battle between a good creator and a great evil. And in the Shahnameh, the forces of evil get a name, the Divs. These are the fiends, the demons, the monstrous foot soldiers of the great evil spirit Ahriman. They are the villains in this grand cosmic drama that unfolds across thousands and thousands of pages. And you know what? This battle wasn't just some myth. It was very, very real. For centuries, Iran stood as a kind of shield against wave after wave of invaders pouring down from the north and the east. This constant threat, this feeling of being under siege, created this powerful, urgent need to define and hold on to what it meant to be Iranian, to protect their stories and their identity before it all got swept away. So, how does all this history lead us to our hero? Well, into this world of fading memories and constant threats steps a man with a truly audacious plan. The poet, Ferdowsi. Now, what's interesting is Ferdowsi didn't actually start this whole thing. Another poet named Daqiqi did, but he was murdered after writing only about 1,000 verses. So Ferdowsi picks up the torch, and for decades, we're talking more than 30 years, he traveled, collecting stories from priests and local landowners, the people who kept the old oral traditions alive. He painstakingly wove it all together. This wasn't a side project. This was his entire life's work. And these words here from Ferdowsi's predecessor, Daqiqi, wow, they really give you a feel for the vibrant pre-Islamic Persian world they were so desperate to preserve. It's a world of music, poetry, wine, and the ancient Zoroastrian religion, the faith of fire. You can feel their passion for this culture they felt was just slipping through their fingers. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. Ferdowsi saw himself as way more than just a poet. He was a historian, he was a myth maker for an entire nation. His goal was to give Persia this grand, unified story, a history that could stand as a monument to its glory and its resilience for all time. So after all that work, what did he actually create? Let's crack open the Book of Kings and see how he put this monumental story together. The way he organized thousands of years of myth, legend, and actual history is it's genius. He structures it all around the reigns of 50 shahs, or kings, and groups them into 4 big dynasties. He starts way back in the mists of pure mythology, with kings who supposedly reigned for centuries.
And then slowly, over thousands of verses, he brings the story into the light of actual recorded history. It's a masterful way to build a world. So, in that earliest age, the Pishtadadian dynasty, the kings are what we'd call culture heroes. They're not just rulers, they're basically the founders of civilization itself. Hushang is the one who discovers fire. Tahamaras tames wild animals, and get this, he actually forces the captive divs, the demons, to teach him the secret of writing. Then Jamshid comes along and organizes all of society into its proper classes. This isn't just a king list, it's an origin story for humanity. Now, throughout the whole poem, there's this really fascinating tension around the idea of fate. See, Ferdowsi himself was a Muslim, writing for Muslim court, so the idea of God's will is definitely in there. But his source material was ancient and Zoroastrian, and in that worldview, fate was often seen as this random, uncaring force, something dictated by the turning of the heavens. The poem brilliantly manages to hold both of these ideas at the same time, which creates this really complex and often tragic view of human destiny. Which brings us right to the climax of Ferdowsi's own personal story. After 33 long years of work, his masterpiece is finally complete. This should have been his moment of ultimate triumph, his victory lap. It really wasn't. I mean, just imagine the scene. Ferdowsi, an old man now, travels to the court of his patron, the incredibly powerful Sultan Mahmud. He presents this epic, this gift to his king and his country, a work of 60,000 couplets. And he's expecting the reward he was promised, a gold coin for every single one. His reward? 20,000 silver dirhams. It was nothing, a pittance, a tiny fraction of what he was promised. And it was a profound, deeply personal insult, probably because of scheming in the court and the Sultan just not appreciating this celebration of a pre-Islamic past. Ferdowsi's reaction is the stuff of legend. In this magnificent act of pure contempt, he took the entire bag of silver coins and just split it between the guy who ran the local bathhouse and some vendor selling drinks on the street. He basically told the most powerful man in the land that his reward was worth nothing more than a bath and a cold drink. Incredible. Fearing the Sultan's anger, Ferdowsi fled. And then he wrote his revenge. He composed this absolutely blistering satire against Mahmud, attacking not just his cheapness, but his very heritage, pointing out that the Sultan, who was of Turkic slave descent, was no true king of Persia. It was a poet's ultimate weapon, the immortal, unstoppable power of the word. So what became of the poet and his book? Well, this final chapter reveals the ultimate, ironic, and beautiful triumph of Ferdowsi's lifelong quest. The story ends with this heartbreaking irony. Years later, Sultan Mahmud, supposedly filled with regret, finally sent the gold that was originally promised. But the caravan carrying all that treasure arrived in Ferdowsi's hometown at the exact moment his body was being carried through the city gates for burial. Too little and so very late. And in one final act of defiance, totally worthy of her father, Ferdowsi's daughter refused the Sultan's blood money. But the real victory, the true victory, was already won. The Shahnameh did exactly what Ferdowsi wanted it to do. It preserved the Persian language through centuries of change. It became the enduring soul of a nation. The poet achieved the kind of immortality that the Sultan, for all his earthly power, never could. You know, in the end, Sultan Mahmud's empire is just dust. It's a footnote in the history books. But Ferdowsi's words, they're still read, they're recited, they're loved, 1,000 years later. And it really leaves us with a fundamental question, doesn't it? When a poet dies poor and scorned, but his words outlive the empires of kings, what does that tell us about where true power really resides?